record. I was just trying, I think everything is. Hang on a sec.
I feel like I reorganized my desk and from like COVID time, and I'm dissatisfied. There we go.
I have muted myself on my Facebook, so now I can't hear myself twice, which I'm so proud of how fast I did that.
Go team.
So can you guys hear me? Oh my God. Okay, everyone can hear me. Hi. All right. Hi, PST. Hi, everybody. I'm Jenna. I have barking dogs and children that are going to talk, just like many of you. And I'm here with Nicole Pfefferman, Fefita, and our very special, this is me, I'm doing a drum roll, our very special guest, Dr. Rocio Rivas, who is running for Board District 2 to be our newest board member to replace Monica Garcia. So welcome. And why don't we start off, just tell us a little bit about yourself.
Sure, of course. First of all, thank you for providing me for this space. Thank you for your support and your endorsement. It means so much because I am a fan of PST. I am that parent who was advocating, has been advocating for our schools, but I'll get to that in a moment. So I am Rocio Rivas. I am running for Board District 2, LAUSD, and a little bit of who I am. I'm an immigrant. I am Mexican, Mexicana. I came from, born in Mexico and came to the US when I was 2.5 years old, raised by two wonderful, very hardworking parents, my mom and dad, who raised my brother and I, and in this city. And, you know, like many immigrants, you know, they come here to, you know, for the American dream and to really fulfill their life potential, which is what my parents really wanted from my brother and I. And part of that was to go to public education. You know, my parents were always big supporters of public education. And I thrived in our public at LAUSD. I went to LAUSD all from kindergarten and graduated a senior with honors. And
wait, where did you go to school?
So I grew up in Mid-City, LA, which is now considered Koreatown, which is Koreatown now. And so I went to Hobart Elementary from kinder to 4th grade. And so that was around the 1980s, so 1983, 84. And then that was around the same time that the Nation at Risk report came out in 1983. And there was this big, that's when the false narrative of public education, which is bad, bad, bad. And then so this information got to my mom. And, you know, through other parents, and she was like, oh, so, you know, this school is not providing a good, you know, education for you. She came very, you know, upset. And so there was this busing system that started around that 80s. And then so my mom put us in that busing system because she's like, you're going to go into the Valley where they have better schools, right? So that was, you know, the logic behind that. And then so I was bused from 5th grade all the way to senior. I went to Tarzana Elementary for 5th grade. And then I went to Partola Junior High, which is middle school, before it was a charter. I went there from 6, 7, and 8. And then I went on to Reseda High School, go Regents, before it was a charter. I went there from 9th to, and I graduated from Reseda High School. And I was a cheerleader. I was involved in student government. I wanted to connect because I loved education and I wanted to be part of all of that, particularly in high school. And so I was in drill team and I became a cheerleader. So I was involved in that, but I also had AP courses and honors courses. And then so I was, you know, part of, you know, that group, you know, being involved in student government, being involved in different clubs towards that university trajectory that those upper level courses allow you. So that's where I went to Reseda. I was a Valley girl for like a little bit, you know. So yeah, so I had a wonderful experience, and I went on to get my BA from UC Berkeley and development studies and political science, and with a minor in African American studies. And I was actually, I've always been a high achiever. I actually wanted to do a double major and a double minor. but I couldn't get the minor in Chicano studies because I lacked 2 courses. There, you know, Chicano studies was so very demanding major, particularly for us Mexican Americans, and I was 2 courses short of completing the Chicano studies minor, and I had an opportunity to complete it during the summer. But I had an opportunity to go to New York right after I graduated from UC Berkeley. So I was like, I think I'm gonna go to New York. So, and then that in New York is where I worked for the first time. I worked at Pace University as a financial aid officer. And the reason I was able to get this job right after school, because I really wanted to be in education, but I wasn't sure how to get to it, was because of work study, the federal program work study. I was able to get a job at the financial aid office, and those beautiful ladies, the counselors, really looked after me. And I don't think I would be able to really complete UC Berkeley financially if it wasn't for the help of my financial aid office counselors, and who really, and I learned everything about financial aid and scholarships, and I was able to apply, and they were helping me. And so I was able to get a job in New York at Pace University as a financial aid officer. And then I discovered Teachers College, Columbia University. And this was the answer to my dreams, because public education like I said, is the core of who I am. So when I was at UC Berkeley, I knew that public education was going to be a career choice for me, right? But I also loved politics, and I loved history, and I loved third world countries, understanding intercultural histories, right? And so when I got to New York and I discovered Teachers College, and it was a program called Comparative and International Education, and I was really able to connect education with public policy and also looking at an international perspective, because as a Mexicana, I was always very connected to Mexico, and I wanted to know also about my own native country, the education system as well. So, and needless to say, I have a master's from Teachers College in Comparative and International Education, and then I went on to receive a doctorate in also Comparative and International Education. As a reason I wanted a doctorate is because it was going to further my policy skills, and it was going to further my knowledge of public education worldwide. And it was going to further my program evaluation skills, which is what one of the programs that Teachers College was providing. And I was like, I want more, because I wanted to understand and be a real influence in public policy. Because as my knowledge of public education worldwide understood, is that public policy is really where the changes in educational institutions are really being changed. And then that's where we need to have, we meaning public education advocates, and not private, those who want to privatize public education, can really make a change, or can really change things around. So that's who I am. I am Mexican immigrant, public LAUSD student. I'm a parent of an LAUSD student right now, and it's because of my son that I knew that I needed to really put myself out there and really advocate in a very influential way on public education system. So I can go a little more about that later, but that's who I am as a—
Amazing.
We're going to get all into that, because you are like the wonk in this election. And it's really, really exciting to have somebody who has taken so much time to dig into education policy and to think about public policy, and can partner that with your experience as a parent within our district. I mean, to me, that's like what a combination that we could have on the LAUSD school board. And I know that because I've been teaching in what was Jackie Goldberg's district for the past 8 years, and is now shifted to Monica Garcia's district. And people are a little freaked out, I'll be honest with you, about in the community about what's going to happen. Because we have had such a good working relationship with Jackie Goldberg for the years that she's been here. But I've been telling folks, this is exciting. This is an opportunity. Let's get another, public school champion on the board. And so we're so thrilled to have you here tonight. And if it's okay with you, can we start digging into some of these questions that folks were shooting to us this week? Okay.
Of course, yeah.
Great. So let's start off with this one. You know, as an LAUSD parent, what has been the biggest challenge that you and or your child have faced as part of the LAUSD community? And how would you hope to change that if you were elected?
That's a good question. I have to dig in deep as a parent, but two instances pop up, so I'll try to address both of them. So the first one, as I mentioned, I'm a parent and of my son who is about to finish elementary. He's graduating 6th grade, but when I was, you know, I was a full-time mom, and I remember I wanted to go back to work. And I was looking for spaces for daycare centers or preschool centers that I can, that are available for me. But I couldn't find any. They were too expensive. There weren't any spaces. There was a waiting list. I went to LAUSD early education centers, but they have certain requirements that you have to meet. You have a certain income level. You have to at least be looking for work or working. And I didn't meet the income level, but I was still I needed, and I couldn't afford anything. So anyway, so I found myself in this conundrum. I was like, I want to go back to work, but I want my son to be, in good care, and I want him to have a quality early education center. So I couldn't find that. So needless to say, I was full-time mom until my son was able to go to pre-K at, I believe, at 4 years old. We found a spot at his neighborhood public school. And and I loved being a full-time mom. Don't get me wrong. I think I dived right into being a full-time mom. I was doing all these like organic meals for him, and I was learning everything about cognitive development and brain development and all the developmental stages and how I could. So I was full on that mom, right? But I also wanted to go to work because I had a doctorate and I had all this wanting to help, particularly because I knew what was going on with the charter school industry. And I knew what was going on. And I felt like, okay, I want to be here for my son because he needs me, but I also want to go back to work. So, you have to be patient. But the time, so that was my problem that at the moment is not finding early education center. So what I would do to address that, having gone through that experience and knowing my parents, particularly parents of color and working parents, right, who need a space to a quality daycare center or early education center for their child, to have those hours as well, availability, like 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. And our early education centers provide that. So what I want to make sure is that the district, now they're expanding early education because Governor Newsom passed a bill where within 4 years, all children with 4 years old will have a space, a universal pre-K for all students. So that is going to be expanded, but that's going to require a lot of structural changes within the district, right? First of all, we have to make sure that our early education teachers are adequately compensated. I don't know if you all know this, but they don't have vacation. They work 365 days of the year. They don't receive the same salaries as K through 12. So pre-K, they have a different salary. It's not okay because they're there. They have to be in the school from 7 a.m. to 5 p.m. Well, they take shifts, right? There's different shifts, but they need to have the same benefits and they need to have the same pay. If we're going to expand early education, we have to make sure it's quality. We have to make sure educators have the professional development, that they have the resources, because early education centers, their budget is very small. If I would tell you how much the budget is, you would be like, excuse me? It's less than $30,000.
We really probably wouldn't actually be surprised.
Right. I was like, when I first started working for Jackie and I started going to all our education centers and really understanding, their operations, what they needed, what are their needs, what was beautiful about the school, learning everything about the school. And when I started, talking to our principals, the early education center principals, they said, this is the budget they give me. And I was like, wait a minute, they have so many needs. Anyway, so I would address that as early education. I want to make sure that we have outdoor spaces for our young kiddos, our children to really go out there and run. So we have, the district has a list of all the early education centers who are going to install this outdoor exploratory centers. So so they have the gardens and they have all that, and it's beautiful. I've seen how they did it. They did it at Monte Vista Early Education Center, and I was there from when they dug everything out and when they found the final project. It was just beautiful. And then just to see the children out there going to different stations and learning about nature and connecting to different themes in nature is one thing that I really want to make sure that all our education centers have those spaces. But if anything, I want to make sure that all parents have access to these early education centers, regardless of your income, regardless, if you're a working parent, it's expensive out there. So we have to make sure we have spaces for all of these parents. Okay, so should I leave it there? Because I have another.
Yeah, well, I wanted to, we definitely will have time to get into all these other things, but I've been saying to people on Facebook, like, hit the like button when you hear something that resonates with you, and because it helps keep it at the top of the page, because we keep getting more and more people joining us, which is always exciting. But yeah, the idea of the underfunding is certainly not new to either of us or to really anybody who's been on this page with us for a while, but it doesn't make it any less horrifying. And we have a ton of early education educators here on PST. So sending them all a hello and a shout out. So
I forgot to mention our Head Start program.
Yeah.
We have to collaborate also with the state level, because they also have, their state programs that we can, have space at our schools, and our primary centers too. Let's not forget our primary centers. They also have to be included in the expansion of early education. So I just wanted to add those two things.
Yeah, let's level up for all the youngest students.
Everybody.
Let's level it up for those youngest students and for the teachers who are facilitating that educational experience for them.
Exactly.
And in what you were saying about the green space, I think, and I could be wrong, but it's like Board District 1 and Board District 2 have by far the most concrete of any of the board districts, right?
Yes.
So I know that that's a district priority, but today on Twitter, somebody asked, what's the difference between equity and equality? And for me, I've always sort of connected it as like equality means it's all equal, and equity is how you get to equality, right? Equity is giving everybody what they need so that we have equality. And I love the image when you have like the 3 different size benches or whatever, and you have the kids standing up so that everyone's the same height to be able to see. And I think when we talk about putting green spaces in, we really have to look to districts like yours and make sure that that's really being prioritized. I went off on a green space tangent because I love green space. But I want to jump into, how are you different? Like, why should somebody vote for you? I know why, but you tell us. Why would somebody vote for you versus your opponent?
Well, as I mentioned in my introduction, the reason I have a doctorate is not because I wanted a fancy title. The reason I received the doctorate is because I needed those skills. I needed that knowledge. I needed that experience, the professional experience out there in the field. And also doing something that I loved and I was just really passionate about, which is public education. I have that wealth of experience and knowledge, and I bring that, and none of my other opponents have that. It's one that it's based on an international perspective. It's one that looks at the social and political dynamics that come into play into our schools that are connected to other agendas. Like, we have standardized testing. Where does that come from? I know. We have the shortage of teachers. Why is that happening? Well, I know, because we haven't provided the respect to our teachers. We have been, all of these policies that I mentioned have been slowly and gradually deprofessionalizing public education. So I know exactly what our schools and the district is really going through at this moment, particularly I knew prior to the COVID, and now I know that, we need some dire addressing of needs in our schools that were not addressed prior to the COVID, and now it's just exacerbated, right? So we need those resources. So I understand that from a global and a local perspective and a grassroots perspective, because as a parent advocate, I was there when my son started school. That triggered in me, girl, you need to be active at the school level, because there are things that are not going right, and what they're facing. So I knew I needed to be involved. And then I brought honesty and accountability to that board district. I was there asking for Ref Rodriguez to resign. I was going before the board and saying, you need to bring honest accountability to this board, because I did not elect Ref, I didn't vote for Ref Rodriguez. I would have for Bennett Kaiser, but people did not elect you there for you to do self-dealing, for you to be, being accused for money laundering. That is not the kind of representative I want on that board to representing my district. So I was there pushing for change. I don't know if any of, and I was there pushing for community schools. I was there pushing for the voice of the community. I was not there pushing for charter schools. I was not there pushing for other, policies like student center funding, or that was going to bring in a gateway for vouchers, right? I was not there advocating for all of those things. I was fighting against the privatizing agenda. The other thing, I have the professional experience. I know policy analysis. I know the program evaluation. I worked for the district prior as an educational researcher when I was doing charter school evaluations. I was also working on research projects that the district was undergoing. So I was a researcher prior to actually working for board member Jackie Goldberg. I knew what we were facing. I knew what was going on. So I have that experience. I worked for board member Jackie Goldberg, who is the voice and an advocate for public education since she was a teacher. She's been a board member. I am working and seeing how she asks questions and really preparing myself. So yes, I have this experience, but now I have, this insight, understanding of knowledge about not only how a board member should really advocate for the community and really make policy change, because that's what a board member is, to make policy change, right? Not to really be nitpicking on things here. No, we need to look at the overall system. So I understand institutional theory. I understand the operations of institutions because I have been studying them. All of this, including my wealth of understanding of the charter school industry and the privatization of public education alone, I will tell you right now, none of my opponents have that background. And also right now I have been working as a policy and research analyst for Jackie Goldberg and really understanding the operations of the district and how we can hold charter schools accountable and how for sure we can make sure that the community voice is there to really, advocate for their schools, and rather than just knowing at the very last minute that a charter school is going to open or a charter school is going to co-locate. So all of that together.
So can I jump in really quickly, because you touched upon sort of two big issues that have been really floating around PST quite a bit over the last 4 or 5 months. So first off, thinking about it feels a lot like, those of us who are involved at our schools and within our school communities, those of us who are, staff, right? It feels very much like there's the district level and the decisions are top down, right? That there is very little opportunity for authentic community dialogue, right? Like we get town halls that are actually webinars where everything is very scripted and there isn't actually a chance for conversation. We get committee meetings that are a little funky as well, that should be opportunities for real conversation. And instead we get this dynamic where people, those parents and staff feel very much like burdened by these decisions that come down from the district top. Can you talk a little bit about how you would address that dynamic?
Yeah, that's an excellent question. Whoever, presented that is exactly what I've been, what I experienced as a parent advocate, and now working in the board for the district, for the people. Yeah, there is a big disconnection between a communication and decision-making process. I know that educators and everyone that works within a school is just kind of tired of education reform after education reform, policy change after policy change, apps after apps, and just all these things that are that impact the classroom but has no input from the classroom. So yes, there is this grass tops, as they say, grass tops not connecting with the grassroots. So how can we, what are the structures or what are the impediments to that? And this is exactly where my professional skills in policy analysis, critical policy analysis, program evaluation, and also the qualitative and quantitative research methodologies that I know to really get the to really get to these to this research question, right? What is the critical disjuncture, disconnection between a centralized institution to the actual school site or at the grassroots level? So we have to analyze, how the decision-making processes are, and where the structures are lacking that you are actually hearing the teachers. So a lot of it is really going down to our schools, understanding what are the facilities issues, what are the issues, what are communications, what is not working, and really see a pattern, right? So collecting the data, analyzing the data, and that will take me and my staff going to every single school and getting to know our schools, which is what we've been doing with Jackie Go. We go to every single one of our schools, we collect the data, and then we're able to see where are the areas that we can address the issue. So this issue will be top down and bottom. How can we create this synergy between them? So I have to, what I'm also going to be working on is including advisory committees within my own staff or within my own administration, so that I'm actually saying, hey, this is the data that we've gathered from our schools, let's discuss it. Do you see, it's like, oh yes, that's a big issue. So we will take the top things that are really providing an impediment or a challenge to really get input from the teachers and educators, and to really filter it up rather than just, always getting stuck and then starting. The reason things don't work is that unless you have buy-in from our teachers, unless you incorporate them, nothing's ever going to work, because it's coming from it's being imposed on you, rather than you're like, if you let teachers know, hey, we want to hear you, your voice matters, your feedback matters, then things will change. It has to be a synergy. So I will be working on analyzing those institutional structures that are challenging, and how can we provide that feedback that's coming from the bottom up, and changing that trajectory that's been going on so far.
It's always blown, since I've started doing this advocacy work for the last few years, it's the one thing that's consistently thrown me is the most basic thing to do. Anyone who's ever worked in a job knows is the people that are doing the work are the people you need to actually hear from. And it is, I feel like I'm a broken record whenever I'm talking to anybody from the district, and I'm like, but did you ever ask a teacher how they felt about that? Right. Well, there were focus groups, and I'm like, I feel like that's a no.
No, and you bring a good point. You bring a good point. I am asking those questions at board briefings. I attend the meetings and I ask the questions to district leadership. My question always is something that I know Jackie wants to know. Was teacher input? Yeah. Is this going to displace any teachers? So, or educators, or how is this going to affect our career technical educators? How is this going to affect everything, right? Because when you bring in new reforms or new changes, it's going to require, things are going to change. So are there going to be any winners or any losers? Or how can we really get to see how the decision-making process was in the district? And I'm asking those questions, and they need to make sure, and then they know we're going to ask it. So we want to make sure that it's in that board informative and the entire transparency of how the decision-making process transpired.
Well, we know Jackie is just such an amazing advocate, and have always appreciated that about her. Right now, we know we are on what is somewhat of a divisive, we live in a divisive world right now, you know, and whether it's politically, federally, or outside, Democrat, Republican, whatever, or even within school board politics, which, you know, charter, no charter, and currently we have this divisiveness with the teachers union, we have divisiveness, I mean, just across the board. So how you're going to come on, and how are you going to foster relationships?
Yeah, you know, because I know there's so many political forces and ideological stances that we all hold, including myself. What I want to focus, what we all have to focus, of course, are our children and our students. So when we come together and fostering these relationships with, you know, other board members or other organizations, institutions who may not, you know, may not see eye to eye, we have to find common ground. We have to address these divisions and make sure that, and be honest that the divisions are not helping our students, and we need to find common ground. We need to come to a focus, like I said, of our students, and how can we address these goals and then also the board goals. The board has specific goals. Let's stick to these specific goals, which address graduation rates, right? We need to increase them, which addresses also increasing the you know, the test scores, or at least the educational achievement of our students, right? And percentages gradually throughout the year. So let's focus on that. How can we address those board goals, which are common ground? Because you're a board member, I'm a board member. This is something that we agreed upon together to really address for this district, to really provide those educational quality services to our students. So we're going to focus on what our goals are, our common goals, and how are we going to get there. And then that's really, it requires bringing everybody to the table, to the discussion and the you know, decision making. Like I said, let's bring the grassroots and the grass tops to the table and discuss all of this for common ground. So focusing on our students and focusing on our goals as a district and as a board, and how we're going to address, you know, the educational outcomes for all of our students, our special needs, our foster youth, our homeless, you know, unhoused students. How are we going to address the needs of our Black students and our English learners, right? So disaggregating all of this so we can see, okay, this is what we need to our students. We all agree? Okay, we all agree. So taking it step by step, gradually, and knowing we're here to build relationships and coalitions and the best interest of all of our students.
That's fantastic. So I'm sorry, I'm just going to circle back to because your answer from 2 questions ago triggered 2 things, right? One, sort of the top down stuff, and then Jenna cut in, but I still have something I need to ask. So BD2 has just been inundated with charter schools, all under the reign of one board member. And I taught in South LA for many years before heading over to Marshall. And so I sort of saw this at closer range when it was all going down. And I know that there are a lot of local District 2 families who are deeply concerned about this saturation in Board District 2, and are wondering, how can they stop this? And how can charter schools be held accountable? Those that are there already, how can we hold them accountable better? And why are we letting new charter schools into Board District 2?
Yes, this is something that has been a concern of mine, not only in Board District 2, but all over the district. But yes, you're right. Board District 2 is a district that has at least 60 plus charter schools. And last I counted was 68. And they're all in different areas. They're all strategically within a block or so away from a neighborhood public schools. And, you know, I understand that parents want school choice. I know I wanted choice as well for my child. However, we have to look at the educational overall arena of what the consequences are of having So, neighborhood public schools and charter schools, both systems function very differently. One is regulated and, complies and, has to be there for all students. And another system is very selective. It doesn't take in their equal share of special education students, cancels out a lot of students, not only special ed. So there's a lot of, things that they function. They want to function differently. They don't want the district to, tell them what to do or how, I understand, that is what the law says. However, when you have two very different systems that are in the same space, it's going to come to a point that it's not going to be addressing the needs of any of the students because the funds are being extracted, right? And we have a district that is educating the most expensive of students, the ones that require more services, the ones that the charter school does not want to serve, no matter how much as they say that they're there to address the needs of the students. They don't, because they're bringing in students from other neighborhoods and they're not doing what they're supposed to be doing. So what I really feel at this point, because there's such a decrease of enrollment, there has to be a moratorium on charter schools. Let's look at the charter schools we have now. And that's why AB 1505 was passed, Assembly Bill 1505, to give local authorizers more control and authority over the renewal of charter schools and also new charter schools, right? So for new charter schools, the community has to know and has to have a very, very present input, one that is taken seriously by the board and the decision-making process of allowing this charter school. We need to really, we get these wonderful charter school, not wonderful, but very extensive charter school reports from the charter school division. And in each one, yes, they do say that resources are going to be extracted, because of this, but we can't do anything. No, yes, we can. We can do something, and we need to be more forceful. And me being on that board is going to change the power structure of that board more towards the protection of our neighborhood public schools and addressing the impact that the charter schools are doing in our schools, in our district. So for new charter schools, the community has to have a strong voice. We really have to look at the impact of this new school that's coming in. Do we need it? Is it replicating programs that are there? In a lot of the cases, yes, it is. And then for renewal of charter schools, those low performing charter schools, we really have to have a critical analysis of continuing to authorize low performing charter schools, because they are given chance and chance again to really address their inadequacies or their challenges, and they don't. The district will give them another 2 years, another 2 years. There has to come a point that we have to say, okay, these.
How do we make that stop? How do we make that stop?
That when we have to really, make sure that the charter school division policy.
We need the votes.
Procedures are really adhered to. Vote me, and I will make, working with other board members to make sure that those policies are really there to address, not to address, but really to look after our neighborhood public schools rather than just allowing more in charter schools. They have to regulate the charter schools. They have to make sure there's strong oversight. And also the charter school division requires more resources so they can have more, staff to really do all. It's a lot of work, right? You have to be on top of them on their enrollment. You have to be on top of them on their scores. You have to be on top of them in terms of their governance. The Brown Act, are they really providing, and that requires being there present at the charter schools and really looking at the data that they're providing or that they're not providing. A lot of the times, the charter school division won't know the actual data until a year later when the federal government provides them with enrollment data. And by that time, the charter school already received these funds, but because it canceled students out or because of whatever numbers that they fudged in enrollment, the funds don't come back to the district. Those funds are gone. I mean, we can ask, the charter school division does send out notices to CURE and say, hey, you have to address this. You have to provide a reimbursement. But how do we know for sure that the charter school.
But then they don't collect it, so it doesn't matter.
Or, you know what I mean? So you have to elect a board member that is going to keep that strong oversight, that strong transparency, and then really taking a critical look at how the educational arena in board district 5 is serving our students, both looking at charter schools and looking at the district. We have to look at them both and understand what's really going there. And nobody has ever done that. That has not been done.
Just to recap, you want a moratorium on charter schools, particularly in board district 2. You want our charter school division to do a better job of investigating, engaging in oversight, making sure they're taking care of everything they said they would do in their charter, right? You want to make sure that that those charter schools that are not following the laws, that are not following their charters, will not be re-upped for their charter.
Right. In essence, I really want to protect those charter school parents and those charter school students and the teachers who are there to make sure that they have they have a just and accountable system where they're working in, right? Because on the end of these are students and families that live within LA County. They are still within the jurisdiction of LAUSD. So I also have to, look out for the best interest of those parents, right? To make sure that they are being transparent. For instance, there was a charter school that closed and the parents did not know until they went to that school. A lot of them didn't know until they went into the school, and then they found out that the school was closed and the children were crying. Other parents knew, who were more involved, is like, I knew something was wrong. We were asking questions, and teachers also knew. They couldn't say anything because they didn't want to lose their jobs, but they knew that charter school was going to close, and they closed without even, really adequately informing the parents or even providing them with, alternatives of other schools to go. So we have to protect from closures without transparency, without, informing parents. Those are the different things that I see are going on. And it's not fair or just. It's not that I want to stop charter schools from existing. We just have to make sure that they're honest. And they were their charter school started because they were supposed to provide, innovation and really help with public schools. But the opposite is actually happening, right? They're not doing that. They're not sharing best practices, or if they do, it's just very little. And they're taking away resources, which was not what charter schools are supposed to do. So we need to address that. And it's time that we, nobody's talking about it. And I'm willing to and I know Jackie has been really out there and talking about this, and she needs another voice also with Dr. McKenna and Scott Schmelson. We need to really be strong on protecting all students and all parents and teachers from,
I think the movement that we all really want to go towards is building up our neighborhood public schools. Every child should be able to attend their neighborhood public. My God, I can't talk tonight. But every child should be able to attend their neighborhood public school and have it be an amazing experience. They shouldn't need or want to look elsewhere. And I think that charter, no charter, whatever, if we can make neighborhood public schools the destination, that's the best result we could hope for. And we talk about charters. You can't talk about charters without bringing up our special ed community, who are often, left out. They are underfunded, and as we know, had disproportionately high impact from COVID. So we're also seeing a lot now about inclusion. We're seeing special ed programs are closing. There's a lot going on in the special ed community right now. So what are your plans? What are your thoughts in terms of special ed? How can we make certain that these students are continuing to be placed in the least restrictive environments while also getting the support that they need? And how do we push for inclusion while also recognizing that again, talking about equality versus equity, right? Inclusion isn't the best choice for everybody. So let's talk about special ed.
Special ed. I will admit this is an area that I had to educate myself, particularly in the last 3 years, because I have on the first day, working for, board member Jackie Goldberg, I picked up the phone and it was a parent, hablaba español, I hablo español también, I know. I haven't been speaking Spanish, pero hablo bien en español. But she was just telling me the issues that she had, and receiving the IEP services that her daughter required. And I was like, oh, okay, I was like, wow, okay, I want to help her, because I heard her sadness, I heard her frustration. And she said, they're just not understanding me, they're not hearing me, they're not hearing my daughter. They're giving me all these presentations, but these presentations don't mean anything because they're not addressing what my daughter needs. So anyway, so that was the first conversation of so many that I've had, not only with parents with children with special needs, and also with special education parents. Teachers, also looking in being in the classroom with teachers and seeing the inclusion, right? So I have been there seeing both how the inclusion works inside the classroom or is not working. And I've also had experience in really visiting special education centers, such as Salvin Education Center in the Pico Union neighborhood. And what we know now is that what we've always known is that special education services have not been fully funded. The federal government has not fully funded the IDEA, a mandate that requires that all, special education students, receive, the education resources that they need, the services that they need, and that the district has not, the federal government has not fully funded. So they need to fulfill that promise to all special needs students. And as we know in the LA Times article that came out about, I think 7 days ago, our special needs students did not receive the resources they needed during the pandemic. And I know they didn't, because we were really working with district leadership on addressing all of these concerns that came from our parents. We knew that they needed extra help, and we were really trying to get there. But, so I know that these problems exist. And I know that, like I said, I'm going to open my doors and create the advisories of a special education advisory board. I'm going to have, the experts that are, and parents where I'm going to be, discussing and talking with them and really addressing what the issues are, and then IEP assessments and getting the resources they need, and being provided with all of the choices, all of the services, because sometimes they just get very little. So for least restrictive, for parents who want inclusion or want spaces that are least restrictive, I know 100% that is has to be a viable option. And I'll tell you one story why. At my son's elementary school, where I worked as a community representative, I was one of the things, my duties was to, help the teachers when they needed, help in small groups, or they were going to do a project. I would go in there and help them. And there was one wonderful student, and I'm going to change her name. I'm going to give her her real name. I will just say Marie. And I remember seeing Marie, who was one of our special needs students. And, she was being in the classroom with, other general education students. And I can see, just watching her with her special education aid, that she wanted to partake. I could see that she wanted to be part of with the other students. She would sit with there, and she would actually push away her aid because she didn't want help. She was saying, "I can do this myself." So I saw Marie, and I saw that that she wanted to be included with the other students, right? And I remember speaking to her mom, and and then talking to her mom. It's like, oh, Marie, I see Marie in school, and in the classroom, I can really see that she's excelling. She's like, yes, I really wanted my daughter to be in the classroom with other students. And she's like, I can see the change in her. I was like, that's wonderful. So so I left the school, and I only worked there for about a year and a half or so, and then in 2000, right after reopening, I went to this school, one of our schools in Board District 5 before redistricting, and I saw Marie. And I remember I was talking to the principal, and then I saw her from the corner of my eye, and I was like, is that Marie? And the principal was like, yeah, I think that's what, I think that's what she is. And Marie was like, not the same student I saw at least 4 years ago. She was thriving. She was playing with other kids. She didn't have an aide anymore. She was like a normal child. And I was like, I asked the principal to just give me a minute because I just wanted to observe Marie. And I saw how inclusion helped because she was provided that space with other students, and other students had the space to also interact with her. So that's one story. And then the other story has to do with Salvin Special Education Center in Pico Union, who after redistricting is now part of Board District 5. And so this is one of the school that's under my, I'm a liaison to with Board District 5. And this is another wonderful school that is losing enrollment because a lot of the parents are their options in IEP do not include Salvin. They want more, they're pushing them more towards inclusion, but there are a lot of parents who don't want to have their child in a general ed. They want them to be in special centers because they provide different services and programs that are really addressing our students with the severe disabilities, with severe autism, our students who are have disabilities. They have to be fed, they have to be provided with the stimulation and the structure that is not available in a general education setting. So I have seen the wonderful things that Salvin is doing, and they really love their students. They provide lifelong independence skills so that they can have independent lives, after they're being provided with the technology that they can communicate. They are provided with the exercise and the stimulation that they need. They have structure. And during the COVID pandemic, they lost all of that. They lost, all of our special education students lost that structure that they needed to thrive. So they had setbacks, and for the district to bring them back, they need to be full on advocating at the federal level and at the state level to make sure that our special education programs are fully funded because of this lag. And yes, the district needs to really address the special education infrastructure to provide choice for parents who want inclusion and who want least restrictive spaces, and parents who want the most restrictive because they know that their child needs these services. So these options have to be in the IEP. We have to make sure that we're giving all the information as much as possible to our parents, and also making sure that our teachers are advocates and that they're not being reprimanded, or administrators for giving information that they weren't supposed to because there isn't any money. No, that's not. We have to make sure that everyone is an advocate for every single student and there's funding, and the district has to be out there lobbying through the legislative department, the superintendent. We have to, and I will go with him to DC and make sure that we are talking to our elected officials. We need this money, and we need this money now.
Yeah, I mean, I think that, after going this past week to, one of the community conversations in Mr. Schmerelson's district and hearing the superintendent express concern that we've got this 2 years of funding, right, from the federal government to help us recover from COVID. And then what, right? Like this is like the decades long struggle to get funding for everybody. And it's been an even longer struggle for special ed to get, the IDEA law like fully funded across the nation. So I'm glad to hear that, you're interested in sort of being actively fighting, right, at all levels of government for that type of funding. So I wanted to ask one of my pet questions, thinking about sort of students and the recovery from a pandemic and the trauma that we've all lived through. I'd love to hear sort of your perspective on, how we are doing with providing mental health supports and what you think could be improved upon for, for student mental health and for staff mental health at our school sites?
Yeah, that is another big area that has really been just a big concern prior to COVID, and now because of COVID, we were seeing new COVID trauma behaviors in our schools and in our classrooms that weren't there before. And then, that's a direct influence of the isolation that our students felt, the disconnection, and then just the fear and the trauma that came with, losing your family or just being exposed to a virus that could be deadly. I mean, this changes, how you see life and reality, and how vulnerable we are. And for children to not have the coping mechanisms and strategies to really, and parents too, we were all feeling it, so this stress can become very toxic, and we see it. It's a stress and a mental health repercussions that are creating a very societal toxicity because of all the stress that we all encountered in a very collective manner, right, in a global way. And so because of this, yes, we have this money, but now there's a shortage of psychiatric practitioners or psychologists, and also our social workers, right? They are trained to really provide this, PSWs are really there to provide the mental health supports and to create that environment and culture in our schools to address this. So what our schools really need, and what I know that the superintendent addressed this in his 100-day plan, and he's been really letting us know that this is an area that he's very concerned, and he's going to be really working on, and I'm going to be right there. But what we really need is we need to work with our partners, our health partners, right? We need to make sure that every single school has access to mental health services or programs. We need to be working at all intergovernmental levels, particularly at the county level with our public health department, right? We need to make sure, working with them. Let's have a discussion on how we can create these first of all, let's look at all the resources we have. How can all of these resources, particularly in unincorporated areas like East LA and City Terrace, what are the resources that we get to our schools? Okay, so where are the gaps, right? Where can we create these pipelines where we can get these mental health practitioners? Let's work with our universities, right? With our colleges. Let's work with our particularly UCLA medical centers. Let's look for USC. And how can we create, how can we work with them to recruit their students, their nurse practitioners, their social workers, so we can create that pipeline, so we can bring them into the school, provide incentives. If we can help pay for some of their college courses, we can provide a stipend. It can be part of their an internship that could be part of their program. We can bring those into those resources and staffing and funding into our schools and partnerships by really working collaboratively, looking at our assets, doing an asset exploration within our districts, and also working with the schools, community of schools administrators and structures, if they're there at the decentralized level to provide those resources. So then we have to really make sure that community of schools structures have those resources to bring, and those research and programs and also knowledge to bring to our schools, right? So that is one area that they can be really helpful. But if the community of school staff and administrators don't have anything and they have to go look for it, then they're not doing their jobs effectively or efficiently. So it has to be something that's consistent, and we're working together in different levels to address those mental health issues. We also have to make sure we're flexible at the school site level so that the schools can create spaces, right? I've gone to a lot of our schools that they have a special room. It's a special meditating room. It's a room where students can really decompress, to really feel safe. So we need to create spaces within our schools where students feel safe, for them to know that when they're having a moment of stress or they're feeling depressed, that they have someone that they can go to, right? And it doesn't always have to be the same person. Sometimes they connect with with the SAA, or sometimes they'll connect with a nurse, or sometimes they'll connect with the principal or the assistant principal, right? Or the APIS. So we need to create those spaces where the students feel that they can go to someone, that they can have a space where they can, sort of decompress, and then make sure that our schools have the money that they can, create those spaces, and are in the professional development as well. Through all of employees and staff have to have the professional development to help address the issues themselves with the students that they can identify as having some kind of mental health problem or challenge, because relationships can be built with, our students have to know how to build relationships with the people that are in their schools. So when they grow up to be adults, they have, those skills to build relationships and to help them with coping with mental health issues and problems.
You've gotten a lot of people like commenting and agreeing, and yes, so thank you. We are actually at the end of our hour. It goes very fast, I know. And so we would love if you would end with actually speaking to the Board District 2 community. And if you want to speak in English and then maybe speak in Spanish, we could actually pull that part of it to post for our Spanish speaking community on here.
Okay.
So thank you so much. And the floor is yours to round us out.
So for Board District 2, I am the leader that you all need. I am the leader that is really going to address the needs of all schools, not some schools, but all schools. I am the leader, the educational leader, who's going to be your voice, who's going to be listening to you. I will have an open door policy. As I mentioned, I'm creating advisory groups. I'm going to be listening. I want to know your stories. I want to know your experiences. I want to make sure that I'm addressing the needs of our students, of our schools, of our educators. I'm here to listen. I'm here to work. I'm here to drive this, the district, this institution of education, and to be in synergy with our communities, to be in synergy with the voices of parents, to be in synergy with our educators and our teachers. And I want to be that link. I want to be that transformative. I know I can be that transformative change agent that can change policy and make sure that our schools are really protected from being underfunded, protected to make sure that they're providing all of the services to our students. So protecting our schools is protecting our students, protecting our teachers, and making sure that our neighborhood public schools are strong and strengthened and invigorated with enrichment. But we can't do that because, as was mentioned, yes, we're all equal, but we're not all starting from the same level field, right? We need equity. So some have more than others. So I want to make sure that we're all at the same level. We're equal, we have the equal resources. And I know that there are some districts within Board District 2 have more than others. And I know how we can address the issues of making sure that our schools are fully funded. And not because that comes with advocacy, that comes with knowledge, that comes with professional experience, and also with the understanding of grassroots needs, grassroots voices of the people. So I am that parent, I am that advocate, I am that transformative change agent that we need to change the balance of power in our board district to really address all the needs in Board District 2. Yo estoy aquí porque yo sé, como Rocio Rivas, como una estudiante que me gradué de LAUSD, como una madre de un hijo que es un estudiante en LAUSD, también con mi experiencia, toda la información que yo tengo acerca de la política, cómo cambiar instituciones, yo soy esa persona que voy a cambiar, que voy a escuchar las voces de este Distrito 2. Yo voy a ser la persona que voy a ir a todas las escuelas para saber cuáles son las necesidades, cuáles son las voces, cuáles son los impedimentos que no han ayudado a que nuestras escuelas crezcan y sean mejores. Y también para que nuestros estudiantes reciban esos programas, esos recursos académicos que no están ahí. Yo soy esa persona que voy a cambiar eso y voy a trabajar con los demás representantes en la mesa directiva para es ser una institución, un distrito de la gente, de la comunidad, para que cuando ustedes tengan un problema, saben que van a tener atención y saben que ustedes son importantes y ustedes son los padres, los estudiantes y todos los maestros que están en nuestras escuelas. Porque yo sé que en nuestras escuelas de LAUSD hay muchas hermosas cosas que están ocurriendo. Los estudiantes están enfocados, están usando tecnología. Yo he visto con mis ojos la transformación que nuestras escuelas están haciendo en tratar de asegurarse que nuestros estudiantes tienen esos recursos para tener el físico y la mentalidad saludable para poder seguir adelante. Yo soy ese cambio y yo estoy muy lista en este momento para hacer cambio para el Distrito 2. Y como mexicana, como madre y como también como la doctora que soy, con la educación que tengo, voy a traer ese cambio y se los aseguro. Y necesito que estén ahí para ayudarme porque no lo puedo hacer sola. I can't do this alone. This is not about me. This is about us. This is a public education system, which is the foundation of our democracy. Esto es para educación pública, que es la fundación de nuestra democracia. Si perdemos la educación pública para una agenda que quiere privatizar nuestra educación, vamos a perder mucho. If we allow privatization to really take over our public education system, we're going to lose a lot. And all you have to do is look at New Orleans and Chicago and know that there is educational apartheid going on in our country. And that is something I'm going to stop in LAUSD. Ahorita tenemos mucha separación en educación, especialmente en las ciudades de New Orleans y en la ciudad de Chicago, porque ahí la privatización ha cambiado mucho la educación y eso es algo que no quiero que ocurra aquí en Los Ángeles y voy a pelear para que la educación pública esté en las manos de nosotros, la gente, del público, y no en las manos de privatizadores. Gracias.
Ella está lista, okay? That was amazing.
Oh.
What a way to end this. I mean, we deeply appreciate your time. We know that you are a busy human on the campaign trail and holding down a job and supporting your son. It's a lot. So we thank you for carving out this time for us. We have other questions that we did not get to.
Yes. Maybe
So
we could post.
Right, we can post, and we're doing a part 2 of Ask Me Anything Rocio next week.
Next week.
So y'all don't think that we're going to let these questions go away. We're going to circle back to the ones that weren't answered tonight. We'll take a look at the chat and harvest more from the chat that we were, as folks were listening to Rocio, they were putting in a ton of stuff. So we'll dig through that as well. We'll dig through that as well.
Mis favoritos son todos los parentes quien dice si se puede.
Sí se puede. and this is something that I'm very passionate about. So yes, bring on the questions. I mean, I have so much information, so many creative ideas that I really want to really explain, but time doesn't permit for all of that. So I have to be really concise about everything.
Yo, I feel like I just went to like a university class.
I know, right?
Like, I was sitting in here and I was like, just feed me. Just feed me.
Thank you, Dr. Rivas.
Thank you, Dr. Rivas.
Okay, thank you.
All right, everybody. Have a wonderful night. We will see you next week.
Yes.
You all are amazing. Oh, and thank you everybody for giving love to your teachers this week. Really,
Yes.
Thank you so much for doing that. If you haven't yet given love to your middle school and high school teachers, please send us an email. The elementary school teachers get so much like sweet loving from their families. Us middle school and high school teachers, we need love too. Just send us an email. We would appreciate that.
I'm gonna go get on that right now, actually.
Oh my God, I love that. I love that. Thank you, everybody.
Bye, everyone. Good night. Be well.
Bye, Dr. Rivas.
Bye.
All right.
Oh, she left.
And I made.
Okay. All right, y'all.